as a parent, the last thing you want to hear is your baby cry. And when those cries turn into a prolonged experience, it goes from heart-wrenching to downright unbearable. Baby's screaming, your brain's screaming, you want the baby to sleep, you can't sleep. It's not good all around. And it's something that it absolutely breaks your heart. You do anything for these little ones to try and just make them a little bit more comfortable, but you know in your heart, you know in that mom and dad gut that something's going on. They're extremely uncomfortable, and boy golly, they are letting you know. This can make you feel alone. This can make you feel like you're not doing a good job. But trust me, this happens very often. As many as 1 in 5 babies are going to experience colic. This colic takes a toll not only on baby, but the entire family and your sleep schedules. It can be incredibly frustrating when you take your colicky baby who is screaming through half the night, is only getting an hour of sleep at a time, crying before they go to sleep, crying when they wake up from sleep, crying during tummy time, crying all the time. And when you take your baby to the pediatrician and they say, it's just a little bit of colic, they'll grow out of it. Come on. So, armed with that, knowing what we'll probably hear from the pediatrician or your family practice doctor, today we're going to talk a little bit about what colic is and what causes it, and most importantly, what you can do to help soothe and help your little one, and also find some relief for yourself. So moms, dads, if you know down deep in that mom and dad gut that something more is going on, you don't have a baby that just cries a lot, and it's not just a little bit of reflux. The sun babies cry explanation. Yeah, duh. Come on. That's obvious, but you know that there's a little bit something more. If this is you, if this is your family, if this is a friend's family, if this is your little one, then this is who I'm talking to today. If you know somebody, or if you're part of a group of moms, or you know other people that are dealing with this, please share it with them. That's all I ask for today. Just share this, get this information out. I want people to understand how we can make this connection and what we can do to help soothe these little guys and girls. I want to share a story with you guys, and this is about a little boy named Colic. When I lived on St. Thomas, I was that island Cairo man. Colic was born a C-section. He was born early. He had torticollis. He was a little bit slow to respond. He was in intensive care for a little bit, and he kind of had a rocky start. The torticollis, he had gas pains. This poor little boy's belly was like a volleyball. It was inflated. He was rock hard, and he was screaming 16 hours a day. In the way that energy is utilized, and it never ceases to amaze me that sometimes these babies can scream for 16 hours and still be awake and not be tired or go to sleep. And it's almost like they get so worked up that they can't. But, you know, this was mom's first baby. She was stressed. She was tired. She was exhausted. And she said to me during a colleague's exam, I don't think I want to have any more kids. And we just had our first baby. Benny just turned a month old 2 days ago. And does he have reflux sometimes? Oh, yeah. Does he cry sometimes? Oh, yeah. Is it most of the time? Like, thankfully, no. Thankfully, no. But I understand the frustration. And I can imagine from our experience how having a collie scream 16 hours a day went for her. That's tough. That's really tough. So she'd said she'd been to the pediatrician, and she was somebody that was under care with us for a good period of time. We took care of her through her pregnancy. On St. Thomas, they tend to do a lot of C-sections, so stuff happens. But she said that the pediatrician said that he likely had gas pains and colic, and that he would grow out of it. There's our grow out of it again. Just somebody shoot me now. Can't take this no more. We're going to change this, I promise. She tried breastfeeding. She went to formula because they said, maybe it's a nutritional thing. Maybe the formula is going to provide the nutrients that your intelligent body that has a communication with a collie can't provide. Go figure. whatever. She did gas drops. They had every single type of bottle that you can order, because that's life on an island. You order everything, so you got one of everything. All sorts of things. She tried to feed him horizontal. She tried to feed him diagonal. She tried to feed him vertical. She probably tried to feed him upside down. She tried everything. And, it finally was one of those things where initially at first when we offered, like, hey, we'll check him out after he's born. And she said, well, I understand why I needed chiropractic care, but why would my baby need chiropractic care? He's not all beat up and old like me. I laughed and I was like, or me. Okay. But finally they said, let's see what this is about. Let's talk about it. And we got into more of the talk about the autonomic nervous system and how that autonomic nervous system functions, what it does, and how it could be one of the key factors in looking at helping a collie deal with his colic. I know I've got a long-winded with that story there. It's like Dr. Tygue's story time. So if your mom or your dad gut has told you that colic is not necessarily something that your little one's going to just grow out of, but, because you're right, that mom and dad gut I put way more into that than I put into most different referrals or other things. If you know that it's a sign of something else going on deeper, you're right. It's in your child's nervous system, it's in their gut, and it is part of their overall development. Many parents think, well, just like a collie's mom, maybe it's something nutritionally. Maybe there's something in my breast milk that I can't provide that this baby needs. And it doesn't matter what you believe in. Our bodies are designed to be able to take care of themselves. Hyperactive kids aren't hyperactive because they have a lack of Ritalin in their veins. Breast milk provides the nutritional support that a baby needs. So if you've transferred to formula and you tried to breastfeed, because it is tough, and you've tried one formula and you've tried two formulas and you tried three formulas, and I honestly can't tell you how many formulas are out there. There's probably a lot when there's not a shortage. But if we're looking at it from a nutritional component and saying, well, maybe there's the dairy intolerance or a grain intolerance, those are common triggers with celiac disease and allergies to cow's milk. Yeah, that's true, but it's not always likely that it's a nutritional component, because if you go and you do a non-dairy formula and we're still dealing with this problem, then we haven't solved the problem. We've just changed the way we're looking at it. But what we do see a lot in cases of colic or very unsettled babies is tough labors, difficult pregnancies, help getting the baby out, not help from rubbing mom's shoulders, having lavender in the air and twinkle lights from a doula, just good positive atmosphere, but birth interventions like forceps and vacuums and C-sections. And we've talked about it before. The C-section rate down here in South Florida is bonkers. It's crazy. And yeah, it might be because it might be convenient to have your baby on Friday, March 20, whatever, because, next Monday you got a luncheon, but that's mess with nature a little bit. Whatever. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But when we have these birth traumas, they put a significant amount of strain into the upper part of the cervical spine and very often are going to impact the vagus nerve. That vagus nerve, remember, is that wandering nerve that travels throughout the entire inner part of the body, that big parasympathetic powerhouse that's going to drive sleep, it's going to drive digestion, it's going to drive internal regulation, feeding, that whole parasympathetic system. That vagus nerve is its long arm of the law. And if that vagus nerve is irritated, damaged, subluxated, whatever term you want to use for it, if it's not functioning properly, then how on earth is that whole system going to work properly? It just doesn't make sense. So we need to look at the area around where that vagus nerve is and restore the normal nervous system function to that part of the autonomic nervous system, that parasympathetic nervous system. So when we have subluxation of that parasympathetic nervous system, well, if the parasympathetic system isn't up to snuff and it's not doing the job it needs to, then what takes over? The sympathetic nervous system. If one goes down, the other one's going to fill its place. It's going to step up to the plate, and that nervous system is going to get stuck in a constant fight or flight protection, stress state. And when we're in a constant fight or flight, protection, stress state, well, we're not worried about digestion and we're not worried about internal regulation. We're worried about how fast can I run to get away from this scary thing that's bothering me? How can I push away from something that's irritating me? If I'm in pain, it's going to perpetuate this cycle of fight or flight because I need to remove myself from this painful situation. So a baby doesn't know how to do much other than scream. That's what the baby's going to do. That constant screaming is a telltale sign that that little one is stuck in that sympathetic fight or flight state, and their parasympathetic system is just not doing what it needs to do. So when we're in that stuck on state, the body's going to preserve energy, and it's going to reduce gut motility, and it's going to reduce gut function, and it's not going to work like it needs to. That's going to leave our infant full of tension, stiffness, this arched backwards, heavy posterior chain sympathetic dominant state, and they're going to be in a state of unease. So what do? We've got to assess that autonomic nervous system. We've got to assess the parasympathetic portion of that autonomic nervous system. We've got to assess the sympathetic portion of that autonomic nervous system. Well, how the heck do we do that? We've got a 3-part exam in our office, and we use a technology called the Insight, which looks at how well our body regulates through that autonomic nervous system, how well our brain processes sensory information and exports it into energy, which tells us how much energy we are wasting trying to get away from something in that sympathetic state. And then we can also look at heart rate variability, which is very interesting because that will tell us the balance in the input of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. All 3 of these put together can tell us exactly what part of your child's nervous system is not functioning correctly, and it can guide us into helping remove that subluxation and allow their nervous system to function the way it's intended to, the way it's supposed to, the way it should work. So if you are a parent and you are now going on, it is 12:30 in the afternoon when I'm filming this, who knows when it'll be posted, but if you've been listening to screaming, crying, you're doing everything you can to try and soothe your baby, and it just won't stop. And I'm talking more than the regular cries, because babies cry to communicate. You know your baby's "I'm tired" cry. You know your baby's "I'm hungry" cry. You know your baby's "I want to be held" cry. You know your baby's "Hey, it's midnight, wake up. I know you've been sleeping for a while, but give me attention" cry. If those aren't the cries that you're experiencing, if the cries that you are experiencing are high-pitched, screaming, just not feeling right, then get in touch with us. You can hop on our website. You can schedule a 15-minute call with me. It is completely free of charge. I just want to be able to communicate and share information. Look through our blog posts. There's a lot more information on the vagus nerve, on the parasympathetic nervous system, and also a deeper dive into how we use the Insight to communicate, to understand, and to help parents get a better feel on what's going on with their child, and also how we can use it to guide ourselves into the parts of the nervous system that we need to correct the subluxation in so we can have a normal, good, functioning nervous system. If you guys could share this, please, with another friend or parent that's going through this circumstance, this situation. Maybe you're in a Facebook group or a mom meetup. Guaranteed, there's somebody in that meetup that is either dealing with this or has dealt with this that would probably do well with this information. So please share the information. Give me a call. I'm here to help. It is my goal to change this up, to not just say maybe they'll grow out of it, to give you some answers, give you a plan, give you something to go off from. So you're not just holding baby at 1 a.m., listening to screaming, thinking, I can't fall asleep because I can't drop this little guy. Because you're not alone. There are lots of parents that are experiencing this. There is a ton of confusion. There's a ton of frustration. But together, we can find these answers. We can make an impact in these little ones' lives. And it starts here. I can't wait to talk to you. I'll see you soon.